Let me set the scene for you. My name's Marcus Taylor. I'm 34 years old, and if you're picturing a polished, suit-wearing government official, I'm going to disappoint you. That morning, I was dressed in an old pair of jeans, a faded hoodie, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. Why? I had just finished a grueling week-long business trip and was craving two things: silence and coffee. Spoiler alert, I only got one of those. The day started normally enough: bright skies, light traffic, and me pulling into this small, dingy roadside coffee shack. The place looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. But desperate times call for desperate measures. I ordered my usual, black coffee, extra strong, because caffeine is cheaper than therapy, and leaned against my car to wait. That's when my day took a sharp turn into what the hell just happened territory. A squad car screeched to a stop like it was auditioning for a bad cop show. Out stepped this guy, white dude, mid-40s, built like a linebacker, wearing a smug grin that practically screamed, "I own this town." His badge gleamed like he'd just polished it for the occasion. "Hey, you," he barked, pointing at me like I just robbed a bank. Here's the thing. I'm not new to this. Being a black man in America, you get used to the side eyes, the assumptions, and the casual "you don't belong here" attitudes. But this guy, he was a whole new breed of authority complex. "Yes," I replied, keeping my tone polite but my guard up. "Show me your ID," he snapped. No preamble, no explanation, just straight to the power trip. "Excuse me?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You heard me," he said, stepping closer. His hand rested on the butt of his gun like he was daring me to make the wrong move. "You're acting suspicious." Now, I don't know what's suspicious about waiting for coffee, but apparently, I fit the description. So, I reached into my pocket slowly, because I know how these things can go, and pulled out my wallet. "Here's my ID," I said, handing it over. But Officer Overcompensation wasn't done. He yanked the wallet out of my hand, rifled through it like he was searching for a confession letter, and then, wait for it, dumped the contents onto the ground. "Oops," he said with a smirk that made my blood boil. "Was that necessary?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You got a problem with how I do my job?" he shot back, stepping even closer. "Maybe you'd like to come downtown and discuss it." That's when I realized this wasn't about anything I'd done. This was about who I was, or, more specifically, who he thought I was. "Sir, I haven't done anything wrong," I said, keeping my tone calm, resisting now. "Huh," he sneered. "Add that to the list." Before I could say another word, he spun me around, cuffed my hands behind my back, and marched me to the squad car. My coffee sat untouched on the counter as I was shoved into the back seat. Onlookers stared, some pulling out their phones to record. One woman even shouted, "He didn't do anything." "Mind your business," the officer growled. As we drove to the station, I sat in stunned silence, my mind racing with anger, humiliation, and a tiny spark of hope. Maybe someone in the crowd would post those videos online. Maybe someone would speak up. But hope's a funny thing. It doesn't always come through when you need it. When we arrived at the station, the officer yanked me out of the car and led me inside like he'd just bagged public enemy #1. "Name?" the desk officer asked, barely glancing up. "Marcus Taylor," I said through clenched teeth. "Charges," she mumbled, still typing. "Resisting arrest. Disturbing the peace," the officer said, his tone dripping with satisfaction. "Seriously?" I said, unable to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. "Disturbing the peace by waiting for coffee? Guess I should have ordered tea." That earned me a shove toward the holding cells. "Keep talking, buddy," he said. "You'll make this real easy for the judge tomorrow." As the cell door clanged shut behind me, I took a deep breath. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. This guy thought he could throw his weight around and get away with it. He had no idea what he just started. The cell was small and filthy, with graffiti-covered walls, a cold metal bench, and a smell that made the rest of the station seem pleasant. Inside were two other guys. A skinny kid who looked like a strong wind could blow him over, and a burly man with tattoos crawling up his neck. Make yourself at home, the officer said, slamming the door shut. You're gonna be here a while. The skinny kid scooted over, making room for me on the bench. What did you do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ordered coffee, I said dryly. The big guy chuckled. Yeah, that sounds about right. These cops will arrest you for breathing funny if you're the wrong shade of skin. I leaned back against the wall, trying to ignore the ache in my wrists. What about you two? What's your story? The kid shrugged. Jaywalking. The big guy snorted. Jaywalking. My ass. Kid got mouthy with a cop, and they threw him in here to teach him a lesson. I nodded, not surprised. And you? Public intoxication, he said, grinning. Except I wasn't drunk. I just tripped over a curb. But you know how it is. Big black guy falls over. And suddenly it's a crime. We sat in silence after that, the weight of shared frustration hanging in the air. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It's hard to tell time in a place like that. Eventually, a guard came by and shoved a tray of food through the slot. If you could call it food. It looked like someone had left a TV dinner in the sun for 3 days and then run it over with a truck. You're not gonna eat that, are you? The kid asked, eyeing the tray like it might bite. Hell no, I said, pushing it aside. I've got standards. The big guy laughed. Standards won't keep you full. Man. I was about to respond when the door slammed open. An officer overcompensation strolled in, looking way too pleased with himself. Dinner time over? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Funny, he said, unlocking the cell. Judge wants to see you bright and early tomorrow. Better get some rest. Yeah, because this place is so relaxing. I shot back. He ignored me, locking the door behind him as he left. As I sat back down, my mind raced. Tomorrow was my chance to clear this up, but I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be that simple. When morning came, I was dragged into a freezing courtroom in cuffs. My public defender looked like he'd lost the will to live years ago. Across the room, Officer Overcompensation sat with his smug grin firmly in place. Marcus Taylor, Your Honor, the clerk announced. I stood, adjusting my cuffs for emphasis. The officer spun a wild tale, painting me as aggressive and non-compliant. When it was my turn, I laid it out, Your Honor. The only thing I'm guilty of is buying coffee while black. The courtroom murmured as the prosecutor revealed surveillance footage from the coffee shop. It showed the truth. Me, calm and compliant, and the officer's unnecessary escalation. The judge was unimpressed. Officer Peterson, care to explain? Caught in his lies, the officer stammered, but it was too late. I revealed my employment, a federal inspector. The judge's tone turned icy. This changes everything. Officer Peterson, there will be an investigation. Justice was served, but the real victory was watching the truth unravel his arrogance. Sometimes, the system works, just not the way he expected.